This podcast is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. From heating our homes and powering our vehicles to cell phones, clothing, and medical equipment, oil and natural gas makes everyday life better. North Dakota Oil and Natural Gas, advancing the possibilities. Learn more at ndpetroleumfoundation.org. Welcome to Plain Talk Live. I'm your host, Rob Port. So we're going to talk about a couple of things today. First of all, Simone Biles. The Tokyo Olympics are going on. I don't know. Personally, I have a hard time with the Olympics. I'm going to cough now. That's always a great way to start off the show, is having to go to the cough button, but I didn't clear my throat enough before I started. I have a hard time getting interested in the Olympics. I have a just kind of passing interest. I want to see the American athletes do well. I kind of track the medal counts. You know, I like to see America up at the top of the list. But beyond that, I have a hard time like watching gymnastics. I'm not judging other people. It's just not my cup of tea, right? I mean, those are tremendous athletes. I'm amazed by the stuff that they can do. But on a given evening, I think I'd rather just read a book. But it was hard to ignore this stuff with Simone Biles because everybody seemed to have a hot take on it. And I'm wondering why? Like, why do you care? Like she felt like she couldn't compete. So why all the hate? I mean, there were, especially in conservative media, where there were people like she's not representing America. I saw like Charlie Kirk was calling her a sociopath and all this other stuff. And I think there's this impulse that we all have because we all have social media that we all feel like we have to have a take on everything. And hey, maybe you don't. Also, the other thing we're going to talk about is evictions. The eviction moratorium's coming to an end. I have worked. I actually used to serve. Once upon a time, I was a process server. I used to actually go to people's apartments and serve them eviction notices, or if it got that far, serve them a summons and complaint telling them they had to go to court because they hadn't been paying their rent or were violating their lease or something. Jay, I know, my guest, Jay Thomas, host of the Jay Thomas Show on WDAY AM 970. He has worked in the rental industry as well. And Jay, let's start because there's a federal moratorium issued by the CDC that's going to be expiring. Or wait, has it expired? It has expired. Yeah. It expired at the end of the month. That's right. I forgot. We're in August now. The moratorium has expired, and there's a lot of people who are upset about the Biden administration because there was a last minute campaign to pressure him into continuing the moratorium for longer. He didn't go along with it. And now we are. Why are people? I mean, what do they think is going to happen? We're just never going to evict people again. I mean, what do these people want?
It's, and let's not forget, a judge came out too and ruled that the CDC overstepped their bounds. And I wonder just like, how can the CDC just put these rules and these moratoriums in place? But yeah, the whole renters thing, that's done. It's over. And I don't get it either, Rob. At some point, people need to grow up and get their butts back to work and pay your bills. And what about the people that own these properties? See, that's the other thing that gets me. So if I work my butt off and I want to invest in my future, my retirement, I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy some rental properties, and that's going to pay for my mortgage and maybe at some point start pocketing a little extra money and tuck it away for retirement. So now I have to go and possibly lose my property because people don't have to pay their rent. I mean, how is that any different than me paying my mortgage? Nobody stepped up and stopped me from paying my mortgage payments. That's pretty much like rent. And when you think about it, yeah, you own your home, but you never really own your property. You're paying rent forever. But nobody covered my butt. I had to go out. I had to work. I had to pay for it. Look, I understand that things got tough there in the beginning, people losing their jobs. But I mean, come on. Enough is enough. I mean, there are people actually sitting out the United States Capitol protesting with signs that are saying no rent anymore, that they should live for free.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand how a society exists without property rights. Like I have ownership of property, and so I agreed to allow other people to use my property, and we draw up a legal agreement for the terms where they're going to pay me a certain amount of money, and I have certain rules on how they can use it. And then as long as everybody's abiding by that agreement, life goes on. But somehow like they think, why would anybody, if we're not going to pay rent, why would anybody make that housing available in the first place. And by the way, here in North Dakota, we never had an eviction moratorium implemented by the state. There was a lot of pressure. I know, like, the ACLU came out, they wanted
Yeah.
it, but our state officials never did. For a little while, the state Supreme Court implemented something.
Mhm.
I think it was just a matter of weeks, 2-3 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
And
It was in the
and
real
I
heat of the COVID.
and I think they overstepped as well, because the court, it was a policy decision, because they did it, like, the court obviously has administrative control over the courtroom. So if something's going on, the courts can say, well, we're just not going to hold court. But the thing is they picked a very specific type of proceeding to not allow anymore. It was just residential evictions. Commercial evictions were still happening. All the rest of them, it was just residential evictions.
Yeah.
I criticized them, and I think that's why it was so short-lived. They overstepped, where they're going to make as the courts are going to make a policy decision that residential apartment landlords can't evict people. It's ridiculous. And the thing that I don't understand, Jay, is you can make an argument saying, well, during the pandemic, we don't want to just kick people out into the streets at a time when we're locking, obviously the lockdowns were very
Yeah.
controversial and everything. But setting that argument aside for a moment, the argument is we don't want to be kicking people out during the pandemic. We're spreading this virus. It's just going to make it worse if we're making people homeless or whatever. So we need to keep them housed. Okay, fair enough. Is the best way to do that preventing people from being evicted? If we want to accomplish that goal, we can have a debate about whether or not this is the right policy. I'll tell you, I'm more comfortable just paying people's rent for a while, just having the government pay the rent, than I am telling a landlord you can't evict people.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, and people have this mentality that just if you own rental property, that you're this rich guy or gal, you have all this money. Just like people think that if you own a business, you're just automatically rich and you can afford to pay this wage or that wage. Hey, you own all these properties, you can afford to go without collecting rents. No, you can't. I got a lot of people that are friends that own multiple rental properties, including our son. Our youngest son owns multiple units here in the metro area, and he's far from rich. He bought those because he tucked away his money and he thought, you know what, real estate down the road is going to be a good investment for me. And if there was a moratorium where he couldn't kick people out because they weren't paying the rent, he'd lose everything. We have got to move on as a society. Yeah, COVID is still out there, but this stuff's got to end. People need to quit depending on the government and quit depending on everybody else to take care of them. You have a responsibility as a damn adult, and that is to take care of yourself and your family. Go out there, get a job. Well, it's like now you got this, how many states now that are being sued because they dropped the federal extended unemployment money. And you hear some of the interviews with these people that are on the lawsuit. Well, I had a job as this and I lost my job. The funny one is Florida, where Florida has 500,000 job openings. Yeah, it sucks. You lost your job during COVID, okay? But there's other jobs you can go out there and take. Go work. Go take care of yourself. Stop depending on me and the government to take care of you. You are not my responsibility, okay? That's simple. Go be an adult. Good Lord.
Well, there's also like when the government intervenes like this, we stop things from changing. Like if we're like rent is a function of supply and demand, like everything else, right? Like how much. Nobody who has if you're trying to offer up and get people to lease a property or lease units in a property, you don't want those units sitting empty, because the property's costing you money. You're paying taxes on it, you're paying utilities on it, you're paying maintenance on it. All of that stuff is just lost money if you don't have revenue coming in from renters to pay for it. So, the landlords aren't going to charge rent that's higher than what somebody's willing to pay, because they want people in those units. But the problem is, if you get the government in between there and the government starts interfering in that market, then the ability of rent to reflect actual demand is compromised. And now we create all sorts of other problems where rent is just not going to be, like, rent could be artificially high because we don't have units coming open, because the landlords can't evict the people who aren't paying and replace them. So what are they going to do? They're going to go looking to get their revenue elsewhere. If your rent's going up right now, I would argue that at least a part of it has something to do with the fact that your landlord may not be able to evict some people that are costing him or her money.
That's right. That's exactly right. And you know it. You served papers, legal papers for evictions. I worked for about 10 years in the property management business and try to evict somebody. You think knocking on the door and telling them you haven't paid your rent, you're out of here. That's how it doesn't work that way. In some cases, it takes months to get somebody out. So now, on top of how many months these property owners went without getting any rents, and I don't think they can go back for back rent. I don't know. But my point is, now, if these people still refuse to pay rent, okay, let's start the eviction process. That could be more months on top of months before that property owner sees anything, because that person that just got evicted isn't out the next day. They could occupy that unit for months before they're out. And that means months more before that unit can be rented to somebody that's going to pay some rent.
I think you got to understand too how much of a risk, because I would serve papers, and usually how the process went, and it's been years since I've done it, so maybe things have changed. But the first thing they did is they sent me out there with a notice of intention to evict that I had to serve on the person, and then I had to give an affidavit saying that they got the notice on such and such a date and time. And then after that, if they didn't do anything, the next thing is usually it was more than 3 days, usually about a week or so later, I turn up with a summons and complaint. And this is the actual initiation of a court proceeding, right? An actual in-court eviction proceeding. But they usually have 30 days to respond to that. So if you think about it, I mean, that's just the bare minimum, right? Usually there's continuances and like you're dealing with the court calendar. When can you get in front of a judge? If it goes that far, if somebody's really determined, they could squat in your home for months. And then think about it. If they're already not paying rent and the judge evicts them or whatever, and they did damage to your property, right? Maybe they didn't clean, they stained the carpets, they were smoking in there and they shouldn't have, they had pets that were damaging things, the holes in the wall, whatever it is, busted appliances. What's your likelihood of getting that money back from people who already aren't paying? Like maybe you get a judgment or something, then you got to spend money to try to collect. You're in a no-win situation. You're not going to get your money back. You're going to lose.
You got their deposit that they put down originally, but I'll tell you,
that may not cover it.
+% of the time that deposit does not cover.
Because what's the average? What's the deposit? Like $500 or something?
Yeah, it's usually first month's
rent, or
yeah.
one month rent, right? So depending on the type of place, so maybe it's $1,000 or something. But boy, you bust a refrigerator and put a hole in a wall, and you're there. I've seen some apartments that I was evicting people out of that. Boy, they were gonna have to take it back down to studs.
Well, remember when I worked in property management, I worked on the maintenance side. I ran the maintenance departments for one of the biggest rental companies here in the area. And you're right. You go in there and look at some of you just shake your head and go, "All right, gutter, you got a gutter."
I think again, I'm not against, and I don't think you're against, I'm not against safety net programs, right? Something like the pandemic comes along. It's an extraordinary situation. Yeah. I'm not against helping some people, right? I'm not against giving people a safety net that they can hit and bounce off of and then get back to work. That's what I'm in favor. But an eviction moratorium,
anymore.
Right? An eviction moratorium is not that. There were better ways, I think, to help the people who needed help than doing this. So
if you look, I caught it latter part of last week, Rob, and it was, I hate to compare like a New York City to where we live, but I think it was New York, and there were millions upon millions of dollars that were supposed to go to help people take care of their rents. And I want to say the number was like, of the 50 million, only 3 million of it has actually gotten to the people. 47 million of it is just still sitting somewhere tied up in red tape. It's just, come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's some of the unintended, I guess, consequences or side effects or whatever. And by the way, kudos to the Biden administration. I don't say this often. Kudos to the Biden administration for standing strong and to letting it expire, because they were under a lot of pressure from their political base to do it. And, they did the right thing. They let it expire, and now we can move on. And hopefully, unfortunately, there's going to be some pain, right? Because the market's going to have to correct itself from having the moratorium in place for so long. There's going to be a pain for a short period of time, but I guess that's the price we pay for implementing the wrong
Well,
policy in the first place.
here's another problem that has come up too with this eviction moratorium is that what people have been doing in some cases is they haven't paid their rent in months, over a year. So what they've done is they've turned around and they've sublet their apartment out to somebody else. That person's paying them rent, but they're not giving that rent to the landlord because they don't have to pay a rent. So on top of all the free money they're getting from the government, they're renting out their space that they're supposed to be paying rent for, and they're keeping that sublet money. And the property owners is getting screwed over twice now.
So let's shift gears. Let's talk about Simone Biles. Did you follow this story? And the reason why I'm interested in the Simone Biles story, and by the way, my for my 2 cents for what they worth, I don't feel like I'm qualified to judge. When I look at what some of those gymnastics do and what they put their body through, it can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing and you're not right to be out there. What they're doing can be dangerous. I'm an overweight, middle-aged writer. I have no business telling a 24-year-old world-class athlete like Simone Biles whether or not she ought to feel right to go out there and compete. If she's not feeling it, I'm going to take her word for it, right? I don't want her to go out there and break a neck or something, or to do something that's can't be undone because she's suffering from, they were calling it the twisties, which I guess is a real phenomena.
It
where
is. I read up on it, and I've got her on my program this afternoon. Robin Hubner, who works for Forum Communications, was on television for years as an anchor. She was a world-class gymnast too. I think won the 76 nationals. She knows gymnastics, and her and I had a good talk. And I'm like you. I don't follow the Olympics. It's just not my bag. Now, I will say this: I love watching the Winter Olympics. I love curling, the bobsledding, all that.
Hockey.
But you're right. How many of these people that are ripping this Simone apart have not 1 ounce of athletic ability in them at all? They just all of a sudden think that they are these they know it all about Olympics or gymnastics. And you're right. Because when this story first came out, I'll be honest, I'm like, oh God, she lost a competition, so this is what she's going to do. Now we're oh my God, she's quitting because she didn't do as well as she wanted to do. But then following it a little bit and reading up's going, okay, all right, yeah. You know what? She had every right to do that. And you read up on these twisties, yeah, this can mess you up. I mean, you make one wrong move. You're right, Rob. You're talking possible broken neck. I mean, possibly death. Now, that may sound, oh, my God, you guys are being dramatic. No, that's the case. And you know what would happen? What would happen if she said, look, man, I'm mentally not there. I got the twisties. And she went on to perform anyway. And then, God forbid, she ends up severely injured or dead. Those same people that were ripping on her about what she's doing now would be ripping on the Olympics for not having her stop. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think people are just out looking for something to bitch about.
That's exactly the point. That's why this story interested me. It feels like everybody's got a platform now, right? Everybody's got Twitter. Everybody's got Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat, whatever, or multiple accounts on all of them. And I feel like everybody feels like they have to have a take. Right. And not just people in the business like you and I. Right. Because you and I, we have to come up with topics. I have to find things to write about. You have to find things to talk about. It's, you try to find interesting things and hopefully have an illuminating conversation or write something that's interesting about that. I feel like so many people, you hear about people having hot takes, right? Like, oh, it's a hot take on this or that. I feel like everybody has a platform now. And so everybody feels like they have to have a take on everything. And then it bleeds over into the news media, because my least favorite genre of journalism is the people are mad about something on Twitter genre, right? As if there's any possible topic under the sun that you couldn't go on Twitter and find some people who are pissed off about it. Like there's a rainbow in the sky, and people on Twitter about this goddamn rainbow in the sky that's just torquing them off, right? Like that's news. People are upset on the internet. That's not news. That's Monday, right?
That's
I
life.
you don't have to have a take on everything. You don't have to have a take. Simone Biles isn't going to compete. You don't have to have an opinion on that one way or the other if you don't want to.
Yeah, how is her not competing? How is that having any disruption or effect in your life? Honestly, I mean, these people will start commenting or start, writing about it. About, oh my God, I can't believe she did this. At the end of the day, how has it affected your life at all? I mean, come on,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, she's an individual. She won 4 gold medals at the last Olympics, if I'm
16,
remembering
yeah,
right.
she won the Olympic gymnastics in 2016. Yeah,
Right, and said I think she tied the record for most gold medals at a single Olympics by a female athlete, which is fantastic. I mean, what does she have? What does she have to prove to a bunch of overweight keyboard warriors on Facebook or Twitter or whatever? We're like,
nothing.
gosh, Simone Biles is a disgrace to the United States. Up yours.
Yeah.
Honestly, get a life. Find something else productive to do with your time. But I gotta scour the internet to be upset about things. And then you have these people. Like I was reading Charlie Kirk, who's like a conservative, like very pro-Trump commentator. I'm sure you're probably familiar with him. He calls her a sociopath, right? Well, you know what that is?
Why?
That's
Why is she a sociopath?
because Charlie Kirk needed to fill some airtime. That's why she's a sociopath. He needed to fill some airtime, and so he's going to call her a sociopath.
I mean, I got to fill airtime for 3 hours Monday through Friday.
Right, but your show is very different. Like I'm talking about, there's a way to do what you and I do responsibly. Yeah. I feel like I do it that way. I feel like you do it that way. And we're not just going out looking like, boy, what could I say today to piss a bunch of people off? That's not what it is. It's like, boy, this topic's interesting. Let's find some facts. Boy, everybody believes something about this that may not be true. Let's look at the other side of the story. That's valuable. That's important.
Did you see the new one? No, I got to give. I don't know what's going on with Bill Maher. I think this guy's starting to come and see the other side of life. But
I have found a newfound respect for Bill Maher.
Yes, but these people doing the same thing, ripping on surfing in the Olympics, and how the sport now, the woke crowd, this was stolen from this group of people. Now it's a bunch of white people that have stolen this sport, and they're jumping on the bandwagon. It's like Bill Maher said, basically, are you people flipping nuts? They're people having fun in the damn ocean. It doesn't matter what their background is.
I love baseball, and one of the things I love about baseball is how international it is. I think of the American. I'm trying to think of other sports that are more, and really the only one I can come up with is soccer, that is more international than baseball. Because baseball, it's hugely popular in Asia. It's popular in like Mexico and the Dominican. I mean, Dominican Republic is famous for sending, first-rate baseball players into the major leagues. I love it. I love how universal. But baseball's it's the American pastime, right? Although we kind of stole it from some like there's obviously some common roots between like cricket and baseball and that, but baseball's the American sport. I'm not out here getting upset because Japanese people are playing it. I think it's great. They've sent some awesome players to the United States. Play the hell out of baseball. It's a fun sport. If surfing's your thing, you should be glad that all sorts of people from all over the world are surfing. Be happy about it. It's awesome. You're going to see like the more people who are doing it, the more talent that's going to be there, the better surfing you're going to see. It's fun. It's good. Be happy about it.
Just like my favorite sport in the Olympics, curling. Everybody does it. Is there going to be an outroar because, this team won and this nationality stole it from this one?
Where did curling come from? I don't even know the origins of curling. Where did that come from?
I have no idea. I grew up northern Minnesota, big curling part of the country. I don't know what it is. It's some guys throwing rocks down the ice. I love it. I can't watch enough of it. I love curling.
Great. By the way, who like surfing? Is there one specific group of people? Because you think it's something like archery, right? There wasn't one culture. Like multiple cultures figured out independently of one another that they could use strings and wood to shoot other pieces of wood and use it as a weapon. So who gets to own archery? Is it the English? Is it the Chinese? Or maybe it's just a thing that humans do and we should all enjoy it?
Yeah, I'm trying to, while we're talking, I'm trying to find that Bill Maher. Hold on here. Ribs. It was hilarious. I mean, it's like, wow, Bill, I'm kind of liking you now, man. Lately, you've been. Oh yeah, it was. Here it is. Here it is. It was. People were upset because the woke folks out there feel that this sport was stolen from the Hawaiians, and and
Is
that's
that where surfing? I know nothing about the history of surfing. So Hawaii, is
I
that
don't
where it's?
either.
I have a feeling that was probably more than just Hawaii. I mean, if you look at like Pacific Islanders, that's actually a very diverse. That's not all the same culture. I'm willing to bet that these people whose cultures, came to be living on beaches or living on these islands, I'm willing to bet that surfing was probably pretty common, independent among all those cultures.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing here. Dang it, I can't find the whole story, but it was like, wow, you know what, Bill Maher? A lot of times I think you're a nut job, but boy, lately you've been nailing stuff. Yeah, here it is right here. Mar, he got upset at the cultural appropriation line says there are only two native Hawaiians left on Earth and doubts that they birthed surfing, pointing to the 20 odd thousand islands in the Pacific. How do we know that they were the first to stand on a board on water? It seems like it's something that any person near any ocean would eventually do. There, he said, but let's say a Hawaiian did invent surfing. Should he or she have to keep it to themselves? Let people go out and enjoy the water. Aye.
The cultural appropriation thing drives me nuts because it's the same people, right? If you did a Venn diagram, the two circles would be almost completely overlapping for people who are saying, well, we got to have open borders and we got to have all these people from all over the world come here. And by the way, I am for legal immigration, and I very much believe that one of America's great strengths is people from all over the world have come here to find
Sure.
prosperity and success and everything else. I'd like them to do it legally. I'd like to have
Yeah.
an orderly and well-controlled process for allowing lots and lots of people to come here and legally become American citizens and
Yeah.
enjoy the bounty of our society. That's what I
Yeah. Not
want.
the crap that's going on right now on the southern border.
But the thing, a side effect from that, when you start mixing all these cultures, is we're going to be appropriating the hell out of each other's cultures. We're going to be eating each other's food. We're going to be wearing each other's clothes. I thought that was a good thing, but now I guess we're supposed to segregate our cultures, and I'm apparently only allowed to walk around in animal skins with a horn helmet because I descended from Vikings. I can't wear anything else because that's what my
Nope.
ancestors wore.
That's right.
Yeah.
Both. I mean, and we're seeing it more and more every day. I mean, even, Disney, what Disney puts out a movie and people lose their minds. How can you have this person wearing this or that person wearing that? I've said this for years and say it again. Social media, it's been a good thing, but it's also such a
Yeah.
scourge on society, man.
And by the way, journalists, don't write that story. Like, if your lead is people are upset on Twitter, just don't write it. Nobody cares. Nobody cares,
Do
right?
like I did. Cancel your Twitter account because Twitter's nothing but a drive-by shooting.
Yeah.
That's all Twitter is, man.
Yeah, I wish I could. Yeah, I would.
I got rid of mine.
I promote my work. That's where the audience
Yeah.
is. I put it there, but I'll tell you, I don't spend a lot of time reading it because I'll respond to people who want to have a conversation with
Sure.
me, and I'll roast some people who are trying to roast me. But I'm not real interested in this thing where everybody thinks they're their own. And maybe this is elitist of me because you and I obviously have our platform. I have my columns and stuff. You have your radio show. And maybe people could say that we're elitists and only we're allowed to have takes on things and nobody else. I'm not saying that.
No.
I'm saying you don't have to weigh in on things, right? Like you don't need to feel obligated to fill up social media with your hot takes. If you have something you feel like you want to add, then I guess do it. But like Simone Biles, what does that have to do with you? Nothing. Just leave it be. I hope she's going to compete now on the balance beam. I hope she does great.
Well, again, this is something I wouldn't be touching, but I just the way this thing has exploded. Like I said, I'm gonna have Robin Hubener on the radio show this afternoon to explain what these kids go through. She went through. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it. But again, it's become such a big story.
Do you remember what they have to give up? What someone like
What's that?
Simone Biles has to give up to serve in the Olympics, she's probably been in training since she was a fetus, right?
Yeah.
Do you think she's ever had a Twinkie in her
No.
life? Right? Do you think
No.
she's ever had a bowl of
Well,
ice cream? I mean, what that takes, I mean, maybe she has, but it probably ain't often because what it takes to compete at that level is unbelievable. So you take that amount of lifetime sacrifice that she has put in to get to that moment, and you think that she's just not going to compete on a whim? She's not going to compete because she wants to disrespect America or something? Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And you look on social media, Rob, and I don't care where you go, Facebook, Twitter. Here's the other thing. It is the same people. That's their whole life. You can look at a gazillion different stories, and you got those same people responding on these stories. Like, what do you people go outside, get some fresh air, go do something.
Read a book. Hey, how about read a book, and then tell us about the book you read. Go watch a movie. Go play a board game with your family. You don't need to weigh in on Simone Biles, right? I just stop. Anyway, well, I'm actually not normally on a Monday. I would be on with Jay at 2 p.m., but I had a personal, I'm going to say personal situation. My kid's daycare turns out to be closed for the afternoon, so I got to be dad all afternoon, and I can't be on the radio.
That's something I'm hitting today on my show because lately I've been getting emails and messages from parents saying, Jay, you got to bring this up on your show. It's a topic I've done in the past, but it's been a while. And they're telling me that what they're paying for daycare and trying to find daycare, how expensive and how nearly impossible, if not impossible, it is. And I think the reason that's coming up is because, we talk about you can't fill these jobs. All these jobs are going unopened. And then I've got some people saying, well, they're going unopened because there's parents out there that can't find daycare. I'm like, what do you mean you can't find daycare? I think that's what started stirring the messages and emails from listeners. Nobody hit that one today.
I think we had a problem with affordable childcare before the pandemic. I can't imagine the pandemic's done anything positive for that situation. I think we need to take a long, hard look at how we can make childcare more accessible and more affordable. And maybe a place we ought to start, and people are going to see that because I'm just don't care about the safety of kids. Maybe we need to look at how hard it is to own and operate a child care center or to work as a child care person. Because the stuff that they have to comply with. I mean, at one point, the city of Fargo was going to regulate the type of juice that daycares could serve.
That. Oh, man, that was.
I mean, and some of the stuff that they have to comply with is absurd. I mean, listen, we all want our kids to be safe, but I think there's some things we could do to make operating a child care center easier and thus cheaper and more accessible for everywhere else. But anyway, that'll be interesting. I'm going to be tuning into the show. I just can't be on it today. Jay, thanks for your time as always.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon.